Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today I have another art video for you and I will be looking through or talking through with you my sketchbook and my final pieces for my A-level art. So if you didn't watch my last video, then I basically created 2 sketchbooks and 2 final pieces for my A-level. So we did one book, our unit 1, from like the end of year 12 after all our exams and that until I think it was January, and then we started our unit 2 book from the end of January till our exam, which I think was in, I want to say March, but it might have been April. I think it might have been the 1st of April or something like that. And as I said in my last video, I ended up getting a B for A-level art, which I actually was quite disappointed with because I was on track for an A, and all throughout the year my teacher was saying that I was on track to get an A with the work that I was doing, and I felt like I did put a lot of effort into my art. But we got them remarked as well and it still came back as a B, so obviously it wasn't up to scratch this year, but I can't do anything about it now. There's, you know, let's move on. I thought it would still be useful for you guys to see this book just for some inspiration or like background layouts, different things you could do. Like I worked more on texture in this book. I feel like there was something else I wanted to say, but I can't remember what it was. I'd also like to say quickly that we had to do at our school, we had to do AS and then A-level, but none of our AS work that we did in year 12 counted towards our full A-level. But with other schools, like they had the full 2 years just to work on A-level. So obviously us just having 1 year to produce 2 years worth of work, it is really difficult. So our teacher said that we could take a few pieces of work if it was relevant from our AS work and then put it into our year 13 A-level books, but only if it was the same quality and if it was relevant, because otherwise, you know, if you put something in your A-level book that's not even related but you just want to fill space, then you're not going to gain any more marks. So I only included stuff if it was relevant to the topic that I chose to do in A-level. So if you've seen my AS books, you might recognise a few pieces, but I'll also point them out, and I just want people to know like I wasn't cheating or anything. We were told that this was absolutely fine to do. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this video, and without further ado, let's get into it. So this is my Unit 2 book. As you can see, it's quite a fat book, but that's because there is a few texture pages in here, which I'll show you later. So this was my title page. The theme that we were given for our exam was freedom and/or limitations. So I've just done the title on acetate using black pen, which is what I normally do. And then this painting is in oil paint. I've then done a mind map, which is again something that I always like to start my book off with. So around the outside I've got loads of different images that I thought could link to the theme of freedom and or limitations. And then underneath I have the actual mind map. So I've got different headings dotted around that are quite broad topics, and then different words that could link to them. So mind maps, I say this all the time, I think that they're such a good way to spark different ideas. Yeah, and I would always definitely recommend them as a starting point for a new theme that you're given. Then this is a drawing of a skull that was from observation, and this is just on acetate and done in permanent marker. And then on the sides I just have some artist links. Then did boxed work. So again, this is a current theme through all of my books that I do. We always get encouraged to do these because again it's testing out different media, different ideas. So you might try out something that you've not done before and realise that actually you really enjoy it. So on top I've just got writing about each piece on tracing paper, and I've written what media the piece was done in, as well as different ideas and how it could link to the theme. So a few of these I did reuse from a previous book. So I think this one and this one and this one were reused from a different book, but I'll run through the media of all of them. So this one is chalk, this is pencil, oil pastel, oil paint and acrylic, black biro, watercolour, fine liner pen and water, colour pencil, and this is coffee. And these were all working from images that I found on the internet. I then did an artist study page. So our teacher wanted us to find an artist that we were inspired by and that could link to the theme of freedom and or limitations. So I ended up coming across this artist who I'd never heard of before, and I thought her work was absolutely incredible. I think it's Liesl Peffer. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but her stuff is so unique and different that I thought I have to write about this. So I've got some information about the artist here, and then this is one of her images, and then here is my recreation. So I went out and took loads of different photos of the sky and then put them together the same way that she does. And I did the same over here. So these are different photos of the sunset that I found, and then these are rocks below from when I went on holiday. And then these are different photos of the ocean that I put together to make waves. I thought her work was really interesting because especially the scenery pictures, so these look like mountains, they could clearly link to freedom. I think of the sky and the ocean of being really free places, like they're so broad and vast, that I thought that was a really nice idea and it could link really nicely. I then did another artist study on Ed Fairbairn. So I have studied him before and I've always thought that his stuff is incredible. So the background for this is actually maps that I printed off Google of like the area where I live. Then I've got some images from him and written about them, so things I like, how it could link to the theme. So as you can see, he uses maps as the basis for his drawings, and I think this clearly links to the theme because places can be very free. Like with technology nowadays, you can go pretty much anywhere in the world, you can travel freely, but there's also limitations that come with that. So sometimes you can feel quite limited to the place that you grew up or that you live now. So I thought there was two different contrasts to the theme there. Then here I've done a mixed media page. Well, it's not really mixed, it's kind of mixed media, kind of just like a brainstorm kind of page. So most of these drawings are in biro, and then this one is in pencil, and they're just different things that came to mind. Like as I was creating the page, different ideas came along. So I've still kept the theme of maps in a lot of these, and I've used like a travel card as well. It was just basically a page to put all your ideas and thoughts down that could link to the theme. And then here I've done my own version of a piece inspired by Ed Fairbairn. So this is the background for this is actually a real map that my granddad gave me, and then this is a photo that I got my mum to take of me as a basis to draw off, and then this is the piece that I created. So I was really happy with how this turned out actually. I did a practice and it went awful, so I was really happy with this. I basically just did cross-hatching techniques and kept within the lines on the map, create the same look as Ed Fairbairn. So I then reused something from a previous book again on the basis of religion, but I spoke about religion in regards to the theme of freedom and or limitations. So again, I think religion can be quite a freeing thing, and it can give people freedom to believe what they want to believe, but it can also be limiting because different people obviously have different opinions, and not everyone is going to agree with you, and that's when like issues can happen. So I thought that was a really interesting idea. So this is a watercolor painting, and then I've just got some writing, and then this was an acetate piece, and I ended up losing this, but it was a massive A1 piece that I was really proud of, and I'm super gutted that I now can't find it, but you know, these things happen. So this is just a photo of it. And then this is a piece reused as well. We went on a church visit to our local church, wrote a bit of information about it, and it took some photos and then got some artist links. And the background for this is in coffee, by the way, if anyone's interested. Then I did a mind map. You might notice through every single one of my books pretty much that I love portraits. Like I love really modern contemporary portraits. I'm not as big of a fan on traditional ones, that I can appreciate a traditional portrait, but actually creating it myself, I find modern ones so much more engaging. So I've got loads of different images along here, and then I've done this piece on acetate, which was an artist copy of a piece by Jenny Saville, and this is, I think it's oil paint. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's oil paint, just on acetate. Then I did my final idea page. So here I wrote about what my final idea was, and it was basically to create a really abstract portrait because I like the idea of it being freeing and having no limitations in the portrait. I wanted it to be completely different to anything I'd done before, so I haven't really done an abstract portrait in the past, but I've always kind of wanted to, and I've tried and kind of dabbled in it, but I've never fully immersed myself in it. So I thought this is the last chance that I'm gonna have really while I'm at school, because I knew I wasn't doing art at uni, and I was like, I'm just gonna go for it So I got loads of different inspiration, got loads of different artist links, and then I did my image analysis. So this is a piece by David Cambria, so I've just written what I would normally write in an image analysis. If you've watched my previous videos, I've explained that in more detail. And then here I've got my recreation. So this is colour pencil, watercolour, acrylic paint, normal pencil, oil paint and oil pastel. Then I did a study of Joshua Meals, so I thought his work was really interesting because it was so strong on texture and also the consistency of the oil paint. I tried my own piece and I don't understand how he manages to do it because I found it so difficult. So this is my own attempt. So obviously this is oil paint and I literally just used a palette knife. I didn't use a single brush throughout the whole thing and it was so hard. So I feel like I can really appreciate how much work goes into his paintings. I then did a photo shoot, so I took some photos of my friend and I also got her to take some of me. And then from those photos I did a couple of studies. So this is oil paint on canvas paper. And then I did a recreation of a piece by Ellie Smallwood. So this piece ended up being a huge inspiration for my final piece. I just love everything about it. I love the colours. I love the way that it's got the pencil details in there as well. I love the different words, which I found out are actually muscles in the face. So yeah, this is my recreation in pencil and oil paint. And then on top of that, I've just got a photo of her one, some writing about her piece and also about my one. And then I did a photo recreation. So I got my friend to take some photos of me in the same pose as her and then just wrote about it there. I then did a pencil study page, so I really like doing these, and most of these were from observation as well, just by looking in a mirror or other members of my family. So this is one of my nan, and I think most of the others are me. I think that might be my mum. I literally did this like over a year ago, so I can't quite remember. But yeah, loads of different images, and then I wrote about them on the side. And then I did this pencil piece, which took ages. This took me 4.5 hours. But I'm really, really happy with this. I think this is like the most proud I've ever been of a pencil drawing. So this was a self-portrait. I then did a gallery visit. So because I was doing portraits, the National Portrait Gallery seemed like the obvious choice. So again, like a little inspiration page, different studies from while I was there. Again, I've spoken about gallery visits so many times. So then we did some lino printing, and this was so fun. I've done lino printing before. I think I might have shown in, actually I don't know if I've done it at GCSE, but I definitely did it in my year 9 book. So if you don't know what a lino print is, this is basically the lino, and you use different thickness of tools to scratch out bits in the lino to make your shape. Then you put ink on with a roller and print it onto paper, and you roll it through a press just to make sure that it prints like a solid colour. So I decided to work from one of my photos from the photo shoot. So this is like a self-portrait. So this is the original piece of lino, and then these are all my prints. So I'll just show you a few. So I've got some black and white ones. Some of them turned out better than others, but you're always gonna get that. And then I did some on some different colour backgrounds, which I actually really like these. I really like the blue on the pink paper. I think that looks quite cool. And I also really like this one here. I think that the texture looks quite cool. And the green one I also quite like. And then here I've done what's called a reduction print. So if I move it out for you to see, hopefully you can see that, but basically you print multiple of one colour. So I did multiple in white, and then you scratch out a bit more and do a different colour. So I did yellow, and then you scratch out a bit more of the lino and do a different colour. So I did blue, and then you scratch out even more for like the darker details, and then I chose a darker blue. So I really enjoy doing lino printing, and I definitely want to do it again in the future. Then I did a second photo shoot because I quite like having like lots to choose from, and I thought the poses in my first photo shoot, like upon reflection, they were a little bit bland, so I thought I would take a bunch more. And I also did this painting, which is oil paint on acetate, and that was from working from one of my photos. And these are like the images that I came out to be my favourite, so I've just written a little bit about why I like them. And then our teacher got us to do a texture page, and this is something I've not done before, but I actually quite enjoyed it. So on this side, this is literally just scrunched up tissue paper, and then I did a painting working from one of my photos, and then this one is cotton wool for the really raised bits of the face, and then tissue paper on top. And I think this one would look actually so much better if there was hair on it, because looking at it now, I just don't like the gap there, and I think that looks a bit weird, but this one I'm quite happy with. Then I did a artist focus page on Eddie Smallwood, because I decided she was going to be the main source of inspiration for my final piece. So I've got a inspiration page of different things she's done, and I've got a bit of information about the artist there. I've spoken in more depth about some of her pieces, and then here I've done a recreation of one of her pieces. So this is my own recreation, and this was in oil paint. Then I did this page. I didn't really know what to call it, but I wanted to find out what the words were on Eddie Smallwood's paintings. So I googled muscles of the face, and I found that quite a lot of them feature in some of her paintings. So I thought it would be worth including that in my book and showing that I knew what the words were and that I wanted to include them myself. And then here, you can't see that clearly on camera, but I've drawn on top of some of my pictures just with some of the words with the muscles of the face, like what she does. Then I chose my final photo, so I decided on this one because I thought it showed quite a lot of emotion compared to some of the others, and I liked like the pulling away of the face. I thought it was just more interesting. And then this side I played around with some different compositions. So I also did some larger pieces. This piece here was a painting on canvas board, and this was for my original idea, so right back to the first inspiration page where I was taking inspiration from David Cambria. Then I did some larger pieces of my final photo, like working from my final photo. So again, I'll insert some photos. I tried out my piece on canvas, which you can see here, and this was using inspiration from Eddie Smallwood's picture for the colours and the composition, but it was also working from my own photo that I took and a little bit of making up on the spot because I didn't know what colours I was going to use, and I was really happy with how these turned out. I also did some practices of eyes, like closer detail, because I knew one of the eyes I wanted to do in black and white, so I practiced a bit in pencil and charcoal. And then this is a photo of a piece that I did on MDF board. So my original plan was to use canvas for my final piece, but I couldn't find a canvas that was the right dimensions for my final piece. So I researched a bit and I decided to do it on MDF. MDF is kind of like a wood material and it's normally brown, so I did 3 coats of gesso to create the white background, and I sanded them in between as well to make sure they were really smooth. And this took so long. My mum was really kind and helped me out, because otherwise I don't know how I would have done it on my own, because it took so long alongside all my other A-levels. But I was really happy with how this turned out, and I decided to stick with MDF and use it for my final piece. And then on the side on acetate, I've just got some swatches of colours and then how I made them, so I would know what colours I mixed up for my final piece. I also experimented with different backgrounds, but ultimately I did decide that white looked the best, and I'm still happy that I made that decision. Then these were photos from the exam. So this was a quick 20-minute observation study before we started, and then this was my piece after 5 hours. And our teacher gets us to write reflections along the way, so how it's going and like our aims of what we want to get done. So I actually finished my piece after the second day, I think, and I decided not to do any more work in my book, so I thought I would do a second piece, which I'm actually not very happy with. I'm going to show you guys anyway, but I kind of wish that I had at least practiced it before I started it, but I only had like 1 day to do it, so I don't really know what to do with my time. But I was really happy with how my first piece turned out. So here is my evaluation. So I've got photos around the side of my piece. So my proper final piece I finished after the second day, or just before the end of the second day, which you can see here, and I'll insert some larger photos. And I was so happy with how this turned out. It's actually quite like pretty massive in person. It's like definitely over A1 size. It's quite big, and I was so happy with how it turned out. Like I like the composition and the pose as well, and the colours. It was such a different thing for me to do, but I'm definitely glad that I did it. Even though I was a bit disappointed with my grade, I'm still glad that I, for myself, pushed my boundaries and tried something different that I had wanted to do for a long time. And this was the second piece that I decided to do at the end of the second day and all of the third day. I don't really like this one, but you know, not everything goes to plan all the time. So I wasn't planning on doing this second piece because I thought that my first piece was going to take me the whole 3 days, but it didn't. But I have learned to make sure that I plan my time better. And then here is just some more photos of all my pieces, and these are some swatches of the colours, and I used it against a photo by Ellie Smallwood just for reference. And that is everything in my final A-level book. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any more ideas of art videos that I could do, then please leave them in the comments down below, and I'll definitely make sure to try and get some of those done over summer. So yeah, I'll see you in my next video.